girls are hitting earlier, though.
Why?
But instead of
All kinds of things.
giving each other
Whoa.
swirlies.
Here we go.
Where's St. John? Oh, yeah.
Walking down the street, see a woman bar. Invited for a drink, take her to a bar. Everybody stops, everybody stares. Somebody cries, get him out of there. Looking in her eyes, I'm filled with fear. Tongue criticized, she hisses in my ear. Everybody looks, everybody sees. Somebody come and help me, please.
It's 4 p.m. in River West, and you know what that means.
Welcome to the Rome is Burning program with your host Pat. Operators are standing by. Now hear your host Pat.
Live from River West, this is the On the Corner Show, 104.1 WXRW. How's everyone doing?
Great.
Good.
I am Dan, as always. I'm here with Sheila and Bernie. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Getting over a bad cold.
You had a bad cold this weekend?
The worst. I spent days in bed. I'm still recovering. You guys are lucky to have me here today.
Were you sick at the end of last week too? Or
Uh,
just the weekend?
Yeah, like shortly after Bernie left, I got sick. Bernie went out of town.
Yeah, I did. I
You-
left a bunch of germs behind, apparently.
Thanks, Bern. And our car broke down
Yeah.
while he was gone.
Oh.
Yeah, I forget what else. The air
Didn't
conditioning.
something fall on my head?
And something fell
We're
on
not
your head.
supposed to talk about that.
Yeah, well, Bernie is the glue that holds the world together.
He is.
Sad
He's
for
a
you.
nurturing man.
That's right. That's right.
Emotionally pretty
clumsy.
intelligent. Pretty
Pretty-
intelligent
pretty clumsy,
emotionally.
So you left town? Where'd you go?
I went to Portland, Oregon, not Maine.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's nice that you say Oregon and not Oregon.
Oh,
That
yeah.
gets everyone mad from Oregon.
Nobody
So-
listens to this if they're in Portland.
We don't reach
They're
Portland?
too cool.
We can on SoundCloud.
Oh,
I think we should tell our
What's
listeners you
that?
can listen anytime.
What's that
Stream
about?
anytime. SoundCloud.
are you kidding me?
Yeah, tell us more.
There's not much more than that to tell.
Well, so
www.
And I think I say Oregon.
well, we do here in Wisconsin because we have an Oregon, Wisconsin. That's what everyone calls it.
Wisconsin.
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 Do I say? I don't say that though.
Right.
I say Wisconsin.
No, Sheila does.
I think I say Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Well, we're all. Well, you and I are nasally. Although you're from Rapid City.
Oh, yeah. I have the virus. Yeah. That's,
Oh, you caught it, whatever it is.
yeah.
Well-
no, I was born with it. I'm from South Dakota.
Right, right.
Hey guys, where's Pat?
Pat, I don't think Pat's going to make it today. He
Yeah.
may be a little late, but I think he's got some stuff going on. So.
I think he's got flying lessons today. Isn't that right?
Oh yeah.
Helicopter.
Helicopter flying lessons. Yeah.
Dryer repair.
At least someone's got a life, right?
It's either one or the other.
Well, so you went to Portland. How was it?
That was okay. I visited some family. Just hung out.
You
Just-
said you ate fantastic food every meal.
Oh yeah, his my brother's significant other made, I don't know, 5 days worth of food. She's Filipino. It was unbelievable. And then my other brother's significant other came over and she made food, and she is Thai. So
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's a little
So-
fusion.
yeah.
So is the takeaway that I don't make enough good food?
No, the takeaway is you're a little paranoid.
And not Filipino
Yeah.
Or Thai.
Yeah.
or Thai.
But
right.
I'm Italian.
There you go.
Italiano.
That's right. Nothing interesting. No airport calamities. Didn't go into the wrong restroom. Get bit by a service dog.
If I
nothing like
did,
that?
I'm not aware. My goal now flying is just don't end up on a YouTube video. So that was successful.
There you go. So
How about you, Dan?
This
Yeah.
weekend?
Yeah.
I don't think I did anything this weekend. If I did, I forgot it.
Didn't we say the same thing at the last
Pokey
show?
was
We forgot that our good friend had come into town.
Yeah.
Pokey was in Madison.
Pokey is in Madison,
Oh.
yeah. So she's still there. She goes to my sister's house. We call it camp. She has like a half acre of land.
Yeah.
And I have a
I
beagle
need that.
basset that just kind of sniffs and sniffs and sniffs and goes to sleep at
I
night.
think we all need that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds like a
I
pretty
should send
nice
Bernie
life.
to camp.
Yeah.
Sounds good. To me.
Please. No, I'm just kidding.
Man camp.
Probably bathe more often.
Right, bath
Man
camp.
camp, that kind of goes right into today's
Ooh.
topic.
Speaking of,
You know what else? Rick's line. Somebody come and help me, please.
is it a cry for help?
And hey, we didn't give Rick credit, did we? Did you
Okay.
mention Snake Charmer?
Snake Charmer again. See, the thing is, he sent another song, but I could not find it in my email.
Ah,
So it's called The Raven. I'm sure it has something to do with.
It's about you.
sounds
Probably.
Halloweeny.
But Snake Charmer feels like our song now,
It
doesn't
does.
it?
Intro.
So we're going
It
to play more
does.
music from Rick Schnall, SCHNOLL. We're going to play more music from him, but we're going to keep Snake Charmer as our opening.
I
And
think
you
so.
know, we need to update our jingle because this show is on at 6 p.m., not 4 p.m.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Pat isn't here right now.
And we
I
need
know.
a jingle guy. Who is that, Bernie?
Supposed to be
Bernie's-
me, but
He's our jingle man.
That's right.
Sheila got hit in the head, and I've lost
A
all
large
track of
object fell
time.
into his head. You lost track of time.
She gets hit in the head. and I
He's
get
still
more confused.
napping
He's
from
lucky
all
you
the good food he ate.
And lucky you made it
So
to
full.
Portland and back.
I
I'm always shocked
They
when Bernie makes it back.
postponed every flight I was on.
Yeah, it was
Uh,
actually pretty
yeah.
bad. I had to take him to the airport, pick him back up,
S-
take him back to the airport.
Southwest Airlines. I don't know, man. Not for me.
People love that airline. That's probably the most
I-
popular airline.
I think they break it up into like 3 sections, A, B, and C. C being in the back. I was number 46, which has to be the last person.
The last row on the plane,
And
right,
I
right
s-
next to the bathrooms.
I was sitting right in front of the bathroom.
I always struggle with the different loading groups because people stand. They're not in
Oh,
B, A,
yeah,
or,
so
A or B,
weird.
but they huddle.
The psychology.
So I don't know
of
what. Am I getting in
airports.
line behind them, or
There's no
You
They gotta
just
get rid of that.
listen. Yeah,
they got to get rid of it.
jet.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
It's stressful.
it is
Well,
stressful.
Reagan promised us, starships or whatever, shuttles between New York and
I seem to
remember
recall that promise. Yeah.
yeah. Still
Flying
remember.
cars. Yeah. Good luck.
Anyway,
Anyway,
So this is what's interesting since we brought up Man Camp and other things.
somebody come and help me, please.
and Rick's cry for help in his lyrics.
You know, he gets roofied in that song.
How does that even work?
He winds up in a room without a door. The first time I heard that, I thought, oh, there's no door. You can just walk right out. And then later I was like, no, there's no door.
So-
He's
Because
trapped.
no doors. Oh, it's just a wall.
He's trapped. That's the point. All right, but so last week's show,
Wait, so you can get up any the old Eagles.
yeah,
and
you can get up, you can check out anytime
You
you
can
like,
never
but you
leave.
can never leave.
Mm.
Yeah.
a little like Snake Charmer. All right. Well, yeah. Last week we talked about modern dating, right?
Yep.
And it was kind of interesting. I mean, there's a lot there, right?
A lot. We
And-
didn't even touch on half of it.
yeah.
Yeah, and so a little bit prior to that show, and then the last couple of weeks, I would bring the issue up. Right, I bring the issue up to family, to friends, women and men, and surprisingly, it's a difficult topic to talk about.
It is. I mean, there's a lot of strong feelings.
Yeah, and people get defensive,
Yeah.
and they they think that you're they're a lot of eye rolling, and
Yeah.
you're like, well,
Yeah.
whoa, where is all that coming from, right?
Right. But it gets worse when you talk about this next topic.
Well,
I mean, really. So I encountered women. We started talking about men's role in society during that show. And that sparked some conversation about the role of men in society and specifically the struggles that men are encountering today. And I was pretty taken aback by the number of female friends, not all of them, but some of my female friends who struggled with that conversation and in some cases just showed outright disdain, eye rolling. They don't want to hear it.
And I had the same experience with female friends and siblings.
Yeah.
One question, we got a lot of listener feedback about the topic, right? And one of the questions was, well, all right, if I think it was mentioned last week, if women date horizontally and up, men date horizontally and down. In general, course, there are exceptions.
Yeah,
always
these are
exceptions, right?
always generalizations and facts, stat-based facts.
Right, and how it pertains to online dating, right? Of course, when you meet in a place like a place of work, school, restaurant, bar, whatever, you're able to negotiate some of the standards maybe that a man or a woman may have set prior to meeting you. Like, oh, well, he's not as tall as I like, but he's really funny.
Right.
Or she's not, whatever as I like, but she's got a great personality.
Young, thin, pretty.
Right. Well, we'll work on those, right? Well, anyway, so there was a lot of conversation. One of the questions was, well, all right, well, if where have those men gone?
Right.
And I think it's kind of a two-part issue. One is the actual, and this is based on some of the research we've been going over since that conversation. But one of them is the pool of men, right? Especially in a city like Milwaukee, where men are gainfully employed and have all these attributes, may have shrunk, right? And there's reasons for that. But relative to the size, the pool of women who are doing really, really well, not to take anything away from them. So there's a relative issue as well.
It should be the pond of men and the pool of women.
It kind of is, right?
The pond and the pool.
The pond is yeah, there's fewer fish in the sea, right?
I'm going to stop.
No, we won't.
Why?
It'll just keep
Why?
going. Pond scum. I don't know. I just going to take
You
it
might
now.
be part of the problem, Bernie.
I am. Clearly.
So when we got that question around, where have the men gone? It kind of begged the question, well, what is happening all along the line that has caused, maybe resulted in fewer men that are, gainfully employed, earners, and so on and so forth. So what is happening? And I know a lot is happening. I don't have children.
A lot is happening. It's actually pretty shocking. Like excuse me, I'm still getting over this cold. I started doing research of my own. And first I want to say the women who are showing disdain, like I understand the frustration. I minored in women's studies. I'm a feminist, or as I like to say, a humanist. I care about these issues, and women, although programs have been put in place and things have definitely gotten better, we still face a lot of issues. But men face so many challenges themselves, and we don't talk about this. And it's such an important topic. It needs to be discussed, because not only are the men we know and love suffering as a result of these issues, but it affects society as a whole. So I just want to say, as I started to dive into the research on this topic, I was really taken aback. I had no idea how bad things are out there for men.
I'm surprised by that. I would always think that the men, would continue to have whatever upper hand they've always had.
I think there's a certain percentage of men that are still doing great. The very upper level, the upper 5%, right? They're doing really, really well.
Okay.
They always have been. When people talk about the patriarchy, I don't think the average man is part of the part of this plan, is part of that world, right? Maybe in some regards, but there's a cohort of men, middle and lower, that are struggling. You take Milwaukee as a microcosm, right? I'm old enough to remember the city filled with manufacturing jobs.
Me too.
So you have auto manufacturing. For example, that AMC plant that was on Capitol.
Both of my grandparents worked at American Motors their entire adulthoods.
Exactly right. So that was the biggest building I've ever seen. It was massive, right?
It was.
Now you have all that retail on that same site, but all of those buildings around it, all the vendors, everyone that supported that plant when AMC goes out of business, all those go out of business as well.
Yeah.
You know, Schlitz is gone, Pabst is gone,
Those are
Blatz is gone.
Those were vital for AMC.
Right. Yeah, the vendors.
They were.
Well, that's just funny.
actually.
You remember all the
They provided lunch.
all the, like the third shift bars everywhere. Remember that?
My
I wasn't
grandfather.
here.
Well, yeah, Bernie wasn't here, but on Richard Street, I remember my grandfather taking me giving me a tour of American Motors, and then taking me across the street to a neighborhood bar, and getting me a Coca-Cola, and I got to sit at the bar. I was probably about 4 or 5.
Yeah, and I think. So do you guys remember that bar on Oakland and North, O'Reilly's? Remember it was called O'Reilly's?
Yeah.
That was a third shift bar.
Hmm.
And so for all the manufacturing in the area at 6 a.m, it was hopping. And it would stay kind of crowded with guys from the manufacturing companies around. But then right around Friday and Saturday night or Thursday, you know, you'd have some college kids start roaming in. That's when it always got interesting.
Huh.
I was in there once. I
Yeah,
remember I
there
was
were
with a
fights.
friend who stole a glass.
Right. So you look back at Milwaukee, for example, and I didn't look this up, but how many 100,000 manufacturing jobs gone?
Right, in a city, what's our population? 600,000, a little more.
630,000
In
at
the
the
metro
time.
area.
Yeah.
So
no,
that's-
in the city.
Yeah.
There's 600 some thousand. That's how many left.
That's a big loss in jobs.
The Menominee
100,000.
Valley had the highest concentration of manufacturing jobs in the country at one time, and there are a handful maybe,
Yeah.
but there was for a while in the 80s and 90s there were none. I mean, it was just rubble, right? They were all gone. So
it's
what
not going to get better.
what's replaced that, right? And a lot of those were traditionally male jobs, right?
Mhm.
They were, you know, men, and you were paid a family wage, a Fordist wage,
Right.
where especially under the Roosevelt administration, the New Deal basically said, hey, we'll build up labor, we'll pay enough for the male, or for the, at that time it was the male bread earner, to pay for a house and take care of the family.
Right. It enabled the male, the husband, to work, the wife to stay home and care for the children, and people were able to own a home, pay for their entire lives. They had retirement. You were loyal to one company, which in turn was loyal to you. Completely different from what we have today.
And it was basically a social contract. So, you know, everything kind of fell into place. Whether it was good for women or not, I don't know. I mean,
oh,
probably
it
a
was
lot of
often not great
often
for
not.
women.
Right. But you know, men slogged every day. I mean, there was sacrifices on both sides, but what the government got out of it was, hey, the family could be taken care of, less government intervention. If there was an extended family member that needed help, they could come, and the family unit can take care of them. So it was kind of packaged as, hey, this is what we need for society to move forward. All that began to change, right?
Right.
After the end of the New Deal era, you know, largely in the 70s and under Ronald Reagan, right? The neoliberal order, and then the globalism, deregulation of Wall Street. What happened was the jobs that are here left for the most part. And
Right. They moved overseas.
or they went down south
mostly.
first, Mexico, then off to China. And it was someone that, during the research, something was mentioned that was kind of interesting. In the 1970s, we could afford a life, meaning you can afford a house, and earlier, a house, college, car, healthcare, but you couldn't fill your house with crap, right?
Right.
Little trinkets. Today, you can't afford any of those
There
things.
wasn't a TV in every bedroom
Right.
back
No,
then.
It was a big deal.
Right. And so today, it's reversed, right? You can't afford the things that build a good life, but
Right.
you can afford a stupid TV in every bedroom.
Right. You just don't own the house.
Hundreds of
and
toys.
You may not be able, you probably can't afford college. And God forbid if you lose your job, good luck with health care.
Yeah.
Families are going into generational debt for college, right? So that's a long way of getting to where we are today.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
but so there's been a change, right? And there's more to the story under Ronald Reagan, the neoliberal order, with rational expectations around everyone's an entrepreneur themselves, globalism, multiculturalism, and getting women into the workforce as well. And so we started to do all that, but what's replaced what's replaced these jobs that men used to have? Nothing's really backfilled it, right? Other than, let's say, lower paying service jobs or high tech manufacturing. So we found some pretty interesting stats that might be pointing to some of the reasons why maybe men are struggling now. It is not to take away, and I just want to say this, not to take away anything from women. You know,
Right, absolutely not.
And it should not be a zero-sum game either.
Right, it should not.
No, and the point is that you wouldn't expect this. So
You wouldn't expect what?
you wouldn't expect these details to come out about men. You would think that men still have.
Right,
Because no one talks about it.
Barbara Ehrenreich, who wrote the book Nickel and Dimed, she wrote a book about the fallacy of positive thinking. She also wrote a book called The Hearts of Men, which I read in college, and it was a really interesting manifesto that basically made the argument that feminism would, not feminism, the feminist movement would benefit everybody. That was the hope. But that's not what happened. Men, like I said before, were excluded from the conversation, and we've wound up in this situation we didn't think about, like, well, how is it going to affect men if we focus on education in a way that maybe gives girls a leg up? Boys develop differently from girls, and they learn to read differently. I mean, just a few statistics. Twice as many boys as girls are diagnosed with ADHD, almost twice as many, 15% to 8%, in part because girls are underdiagnosed. It's not just that boys actually have twice as much ADHD. 70% of school suspensions are boys being suspended. There is a little bit of truth that boys may act out in ways that are more noticeable than girls, but multiple studies have found that even when girls have the exact same misbehavior, they are punished in much less harsh ways, if punished at all.
I read 2 to 5 times more, but if you happen to be black or Hispanic, it's even higher.
Right.
So it's on the higher
all
end
of this is even worse for people of color and people that are in low income situations. 42% of undergraduates are...
Let's go back to the school thing for a second.
Okay.
So what I read was that, college is becoming more and more important, right?
Yes.
So as young kids enter school at 5 years old, there's an emphasis on right out of the gate, getting them reading, getting them doing some of the things that prepare them. So what they've done, well, a lot of schools have done, is they've eliminated or severely cut back recess and gym.
Right. And as a matter of fact, this came up on our last show, and one of our listener questions was, what is the ratio of ADHD medication from boys to girls? And it's actually pretty even. Once a girl is diagnosed with ADHD, she receives medication just like a boy. The problem is that girls aren't always being diagnosed, and boys are sometimes being over-diagnosed because they're just being boys. They might be younger, just slightly. Even a 10-month difference can make a big difference in how you behave in school at that age.
Doesn't the process generally start with the teacher?
Yeah, more than 50% of teachers are the ones who ask for an assessment for ADHD. And there's no blood test. These assessments are made based on personality and interviewing kids. And sometimes a boy is literally, boys will be boys. He's just being a boy. They've taken away recess. So now this kid is having a hard time sitting still in class. And for that, he might wind up on a pretty heavy duty medication for life.
And a majority of teachers at that grade level are female.
Yes, by far.
Overwhelmingly large number, right?
And they hold biases.
Right, and that's only natural.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's funny. So my sister's a second grade school teacher. And
you said this last time, but go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's more relevant now than it was last time.
We might have a different listener today.
We might. Well, so
I think we're up to 2.
Right. So boys mature more slowly. They catch up, right? But
yeah,
they
I'm still developing.
Yeah, Bernie's still catching up. That frontal lobe is a little underdeveloped.
It is.
What happens is, and due to some environmental factors, that gap is growing even more, and that's something I haven't confirmed. But there's a lot of studies that are being conducted now that say that let's say it's a 10-month difference in maturity levels, which it probably is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's growing due to some other factors around. Did I just say doo-doo? Doo-doo.
You said doo-doo.
So yeah, who got suspended for that? Go to the
You're
principal's
out of
office.
here.
Oh, God.
But so they're talking about redshirting kids,
What's that mean?
holding them back, boys.
Boys,
Right? Boys, yeah.
specifically. Which
Right.
is, I think it's a smart thing to do, because if boys are developing at a slower rate than girls, why would you start them at school at the same age as girls?
Well, there are two problems here, right? One is then the boys are behind, right out of the gate, and it's hard to catch up
Well, they
you
don't
mean
have to
if they're
catch up.
not
if
ready?
they're not ready, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I asked my sister what she thought of that, and she's like, "Well, why should they get a leg up?" I mean, like, wow, what a
I mean,
stunningly.
It is. That to me is a pretty shocking statement, and that's the kind of disdain I'm talking about that I encountered, because if it hurts society as a whole to put males in these positions where they're falling behind from the get-go and they may not ever fully catch up. So we shouldn't be looking at it as a leg up. We talk about equity. Let's level the playing field. If a boy is maturing a little more slowly, then start him in school a little bit later. And that does happen, but it tends to happen more from people that are more highly educated, people that are better off socioeconomically, because they understand the issue.
And the other piece is it becomes childcare, right? So if I'm a single parent that's working, do I want to keep my son home a year
Yeah.
longer?
Yeah.
Right.
Because I have
Good
to go to
point.
work every day,
And
right?
it can be really expensive.
Really expensive and super inconvenient, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, continue on with the...
Well,
Sorry.
I don't know what I was saying. So we were just
And thanks for joining on the Corner Show.
so that's one issue in education. There's all kinds of issues. There's boys not showing as much interest in reading. Girls they read at a much higher rate than boys. In fact, there was a teacher in Baltimore, I think this was around 2001, she noticed that of the students in her class that were struggling with reading, they were predominantly the boys. One of these boys was a very smart kid. So she asked him, David, what is it that interests you? And his face lit up and he said, ooh, I like sharks and I like World War II pilots or planes or something. And so the teacher went out and she bought a bunch of books about sharks and war and, well, I don't know, war doesn't sound right for a 5-year-old, but
Planes. World War II.
planes, gross facts, dinosaurs. And this kid started reading.
That was kind of sexist.
What was?
Gross fact.
No, but really that's part of the story. Boys like information. And my brother and I went to the library a lot as kids, and I always went for the stories, and he always went for information when we were little. And I thought, oh, God, reading about planets, that seems boring. But that's what he liked, and that's what boys, generally speaking, like.
So he wasn't interested in the Pancakes in the Attic by Julie Bloom? Judy Bloom?
Give a mouse a cupcake.
Yeah, exactly.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm gonna-
Well, so that's interesting, right? So it all leads to fewer boys graduating from high school than in the past, and relative to girls, right? And then Richard Reeves wrote this book. I think he's with the Manhattan Institute, and one thing that stuck out at me, one of his he actually had they did some analysis, and they found that the number one indicator of men going to prison is not finishing high school. And the number one indicator of not getting a career is going to prison. Right.
Wow.
So
Conundrum.
So you're
Yeah.
just screwed.
Yeah.
and you had mentioned that 1 in 9 men have gone to prison. or
Is
either
that
are
right?
in prison or have spent time in.
Yeah, and I think the number for women was 1 in 54.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure
1
that's
in
what
9.
it was.
1 in 9.
Does it-
That's
is it-
millions.
It's like my turn, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's 1 in 56 women. Yeah, over 90% of prison inmates are male.
That's almost 10%, right?
Yeah, it's more than 10%, right? And the thing is,
More than 10%.
there you go.
I have
Did Bernie
remedial math.
graduate? That's right.
That to me was a pretty shocking statistic. I mean, a lot of these statistics were shocking, and we have to look at like why are males not able to interrupt these issues and get help? What is going on? Well, part of what is going on is nobody's talking about it. On the dating show, we talked about women want men who are emotionally intelligent, but how are boys being taught to be emotionally literate? It's not, they don't really ask for therapy. You know, one of the statistics is that females report much higher levels of depression, PTSD, and anxiety. But to me, that key word is report. How many males are not asking for help when they need it? We know the suicide rate among men is way higher. It's 75% to 80% of suicide deaths are by males. That's another shocking
And that
statistic.
doesn't include the deaths of despair, which is like, whoa.
Yeah, define deaths
overdose-
of despair.
Just overdoses and drinking yourself to death, or whatever it is.
Yeah, what a dark term, deaths of despair.
Yeah.
Sounds like a band.
Yeah, like a
I think
heavy
they're playing
metal
at
band.
Quarters, right?
Yeah. I probably would pay to see him.
I would too.
And even without deaths of despair or suicide, I mean, I think we all know that men die younger than women. And it's kind of become this accepted, like, oh, women just live longer. But why? On average, men die 5 years earlier than women.
I thought it would be more.
Yeah, I actually did too.
Because you know what I think? I think white women, I think their life expectancy has actually dropped a little. I thought I read
I'm
that.
not surprised.
And
Yeah,
it's because
no, I think you're right. I think I've read that as well.
Didn't one of you make the point that initially we had, what you were talking about before, these great jobs, these careers for,
Jobs.
most everybody, and we basically transitioned into building an industrial complex of prisons to house sort of the remainder of.
So that's interesting. That's a good point, because back in the 80s, Ronald Reagan was president. We purposefully we treated labor as a commodity, right? And we stacked the courts with anti-labor judges. We broke unions. You remember he fired all the air traffic controllers.
Yep,
That was just
I
the
remember
beginning,
that, yeah.
right? You deregulate Wall Street. They're flush with cash. They bought up a lot of these manufacturing companies, chopped them up, sold them for cash. As being on the board, they would say something like, well, you need to lower your costs, whether you're dealing with environmental factors that you're paying a lot for, or all this labor that you're paying family wages to. Well, maybe move south where you don't have to pay as much, and there's no union there, from there, Mexico, and then on to China. So we have, and then there really was conversation around what are you going to do with an excess of men.
Yeah.
And that conversation was in the 80s, and it's not a coincidence that we started building prisons and mass incarceration, right?
It's big business. Prison.
It's big business, right? But our
Is there
incarceration
anything more cynical
rates
than a
went-
for-profit prison?
right. And is there any more cynical than saying, well, we don't have enough jobs for all these men?
Yeah.
Let's start locking them up. And again, the black neighborhoods were hit the worst. Remember the crack epidemic,
Yeah.
the black market expanded, and so we had to do something with them, and that became kind of the answer, right? There was no investment here. A lot of the global dollars went to the coast, right? It fed all the Silicon Valley, Boston, all the high tech. Wall Street went from becoming I forgot the numbers though, as a percentage of finance, as a percentage of workforce employment, is like fifth now.
Oh, is
So
that right?
managing money became huge, and making things began to trail off.
Yeah.
But managing money isn't happening here. Silicon Valley isn't here. None of
No,
that's here.
no.
So what is backfilling that? It doesn't have to be
Right.
here. It could be any city in the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley. I mean, the list goes on. Cleveland, Milwaukee, Detroit,
I
Memphis,
was
St. Louis, Cincinnati.
just listening to something about how with Biden's, I forget the bill that he sent through, but
The
there was
Build Back Better.
yeah, there was a lot of billions of dollars put toward battery development, and it's taken off in multiple states, and we just gutted all that with the new bill. So, and these battery companies are like, I don't think we can do business in America, because if every administration's gonna flip flop, we can't. We have to be able to look toward the future. And anyway,
Right, and
I think it could be worse.
And then Trump is saying, well, if we have tariffs, it's cheaper to make things here, so all those jobs are going to come back. I don't see that happening either.
Yeah.
But here we are.
So
right?
the future is uncertain. That's
So,
my point.
so here we are with boys struggling in school, getting suspended way more, dropping out. Many of them, some of them enrolling in college, but maybe not graduating.
Did either of you get suspended?
No, I did. I got a lot of detentions for being late.
I've been kicked off the school bus, but
Oh.
nothing worse.
I got kicked out of the library for talking.
Me too.
And by the way, excessive talking in girls is one of the symptoms of ADHD that goes missed. One of the reasons girls are underdiagnosed.
I've been secretly medicating you for 2 years.
I
didn't
do
get
wonder,
suspended,
like, hey,
but-
I do talk a lot. But so we've got these boys that are not getting educated. And Dan, you said earlier that that males without a college degree struggle more than anyone, right? Aren't they in the worst situation?
Men without a high school degree, the worst.
Oh,
Without a
high
college degree,
school.
also struggle.
Well, yeah,
right?
that would be the worst, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So where are they? What do these men do that aren't finding jobs?
So another thing
Yeah.
that came out of Richard Reeves' book, where I forget the name of the book, of Boys and Men, I think, that since 1947, when records have been started being kept around workforce participation,
Mhm.
since 1947, we have never had fewer men as a percentage of the population in the labor force. African American men are underrepresented quite a bit in the labor force. White men are underrepresented. Asian and Hispanic men are overrepresented. But in total, there are more men not even looking for work, not even in the workforce.
So they've given up. I
They've
guess.
given up, but where are
They've given
they?
up.
Yeah.
So in 1950, 97% of working age men, they called it prime age. It was 25 to 54 were in the labor
Primates?
force. Prime
Archie.
age.
That's Archie Bunker time.
Archie. Edith didn't work. So 97%
Yeah.
in 1950. Today,
I remember your dad telling me, in his youth, he would, if he got fired, he wouldn't sweat it. He'd just go down the street and get another job.
Yeah, there were
I can't
tons of
imagine
jobs.
having that feeling of. I always have a sense of employment.
Those days
anxiety.
are over, right?
Yeah.
today, only about 89% of the men in that same age range are working, and those are the ones that have college degrees. If you don't have a college degree, the number is even lower. And then for men that are age 20 to 24, participation is under 70%. And participation in the workforce, that
60
blows
some-
my mind.
60
Millions of men, right?
So that
Are just
40%.
not working. And not only not working,
My
but
math is bad.
but not looking. That's an
Wow.
important thing.
So what do they
They're just
do?
checked out.
Well, there's some stats around that as well, about men either living at home with their parents, on disability, which is a huge one, SSI, and or living with a girlfriend and not working,
like
right?
a gig
A partner.
thing,
Yeah.
Partner, yeah.
hustling, for something.
Or hustling, right? Another example. I think this is my personal opinion. A 24-year-old man that doesn't have any prospects in life, who lacks, let's say, an education or the resources to go out and get a job, standing on the corner is terrifying, right? Because they do anything. They'll just, I mean,
And they've got nothing to lose.
right. In Milwaukee, all right, in the 1970s, the interior part of the country had jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Men were working. There were middle-class cities. Keep up with the infrastructure. We keep up the social safety net,
Yeah.
and people had jobs. The crime rate was probably quite a bit lower than it was in cities like New York or Los Angeles, where you had a much more immigrant population.
Hmm.
Here, everything reversed. Manufacturing jobs left. Nothing backfilled them. Investment went to the coast. Massive drops in crime in Los Angeles, major metropolitan areas. New York, Boston, Philadelphia, Los Angeles all dropped. Where they increased and no one talks about are the Buffaloes, the Detroits, the St. Louises, the
Cleveland.
Milwaukees, the Clevelands. And they've gone up significantly. We are talking massive increases in crime and high incarceration rates. So in part, where are they? Yeah, they are on disability. They are in basements. They are playing video games. They are not working. But they're also participating in the black market. And and that leads to violence. It leads to crime. It leads to breakup of families, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we are. It's
Yeah,
a little depressing.
and going back to women, we put programs in place. We encouraged women to go to college. I mean, I myself got scholarships that were about being a returning adult woman. The Sally Grudemont scholarship, I think it was called. I got some scholarships. I can't even remember what the organizations were, but they were all veered toward my being a female. And STEM, we've encouraged women to go into STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and math. And women they still don't hold leadership positions in those roles.
Gaining, though.
Yeah.
Gaining.
And we did more than encourage, right? There are programs, that actually mentoring programs. There are almost every institution has one. Right?
Right. And from a young age now, there are books written that are aimed at young girls. Let's look at science as a possibility. Then we've got HEAL,
What's that?
health, education, arts, and literacy. But we don't have we need more males in these holding
We need
positions.
to keep
And
all those existing programs as well.
yeah, nobody's saying let's take something away
Right.
from females.
Right.
Absolutely not. But it's just that men have not been included in the conversation. It's the simplest way of putting it. We're looking at all of the possibilities to help everyone but men.
I wish I knew if there were other countries that had similar issues, I guess, and if they were successful in certain ways that we don't use, we could adopt.
Yeah, I agree. You look at the HEAL professions. I think there's a smaller percentage of men in those professions since the 1970s. Actually dropped.
I think you're right, because part of health is also physicians, doctors, and there are more women now becoming doctors than there were.
It's 50-50. And dentistry.
Oh, and dentistry. It's
So where are the boys? Boom, boom. You wrote that. You wrote in that question. There are a lot of places. There's just fewer of them that are, I think, okay.
And another statistic we haven't talked about, or another issue, is loneliness. Males are facing unprecedented loneliness. When women tend to initiate divorce. When that happens, still it's
Over 70% of the
over
time.
70% of the
Is that
time.
Is that for an average of all age groups?
I think so.
Okay.
And I was trying to figure out why, and it does say that women, we are more emotionally connected and aware of what we want, and if a woman can't get that from her male partner, and she's talked about it again and again, and she's gone to therapy, and she's done things to try to repair the relationship. Sometimes they're just like, I just can't keep doing this.
Or they just don't like them anymore.
Maybe. In fact, you've read some stuff about that a little bit, right?
So depressing.
Yeah. This whole topic is depressing, but really important.
Did you know, I also bumped into, that made me think of Bernie. I bumped
Uh-oh.
Well, I'm
bumped into
so
a stat
dedicated. You
that,
can tell me
that
anything.
Gen Z men today,
Yeah.
grip strength is 30% weaker than
So I'm like, I'm
yeah,
God.
with your little toddler hands.
If I was,
I'm thinking,
if I
oh,
was
yeah.
a Gen Z, I'd be like the strongest.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's
Why
God,
is
there's so
that?
many topics. That's well, why is that testosterone levels are dropping?
They are?
Yeah. I think that was a pretty shocking statistic. I believe, I'm trying to remember, it was by 20 to 25% in males. So males are still hitting puberty, which means testicular enlargement, at about the same age they always did.
Bernie's chuckling.
Yeah, I'm wondering now what's the right size. Now I have to go Google
They
something.
called me blueberries in high school.
Hey, Dingleberry, get your.
Dingleberry. Oh, is that right?
Whatever. Whatever.
Leave it to Bernie to take us right over the edge.
Girls are hitting puberty at a younger age. And this is depressing too. They're hitting puberty as young as 9.
Oh God.
And for girls, puberty means breast budding. So you start to develop breasts.
I mean, I remember some of the men that I was around when I was a kid, and maybe tapering off some of that testosterone isn't a bad thing. There were some losers.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know, but I mean, it's a change, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's.
You
it
still want to be
it's-
able to open a pickle jar for Sheila. If she's
Yes.
in trouble, right?
Yes.
Because I really can't. I can't get the darn pickle jar
Neither can
open.
sausage fingers over there.
So yeah, there are these hormones are being interrupted for both males and females. There's all kinds of stuff like kids are gaining weight, which causes problems.
Plastics, probably.
Plastics are the big things. Phthalates, that's a word that's spelled like PHTH, that crazy looking word. That is plastics. And it's not only food packaging or packaging of shampoo bottles, they're also in your shampoo and conditioner and other personal
so it
hygiene
seeps
products.
into your body.
Tide Pods, everything. You know,
Yeah.
and the other thing is they said the prevalence of pornography, right, has driven.
Is wrapped in plastic.
That's right. That's right.
How do you know that, Bernie?
Yeah. But I mean, it's
Patatilates.
so men are retreating to the dark corners of, and filling that void with Joe Rogan and Theo Vines,
Oh,
or
yeah.
some of the, or Andrew Tate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's one
Heroes.
outcome.
Yeah. So
Menches.
someone is filling that void.
We only had Ted Nugent.
Right.
You know.
We didn't have anything.
Yeah.
We had grip strength.
You
though.
had
We had grip strength, and we'd
what's the
go
bacon?
we'd go outside and we'd make friends with complete strangers and go, hey, let's go play kickball, and then maybe you never see them again.
You had
But
Dick
today,
Bacon.
You what?
You had Dick Bacon, isn't that the guy on the beach with
Yeah.
perpetually
Mr.
tan?
Nude Universe
Yeah,
back in the
there you go.
50s.
There, perfect.
today, boy, I wish I could remember these statistics. Boys don't have friends, generally speaking. The number of males.
This is geared toward Dan.
I mean, both of you, I think, are pretty emotionally intelligent. A lot of boys, the number has
Can we
dropped.
jump into that a little bit more? Just kidding. It's the conversation
You
we
have
had.
friends.
Talk about Bernie.
I'm
Oh.
editing. Self-editing.
Yeah,
Self-editing.
yeah.
Self-editing.
Yeah.
Anyway, keep going.
The number of boys, who have, I think it was more than 6 friends, has dropped by something like 50%. Boy, I gotta find the statistic. Talk
that's
amongst
depressing.
So
yourselves.
here's what I
Depressing.
came down with, right? Is
Mhm.
my takeaway.
Mono.
Right, yeah, mono. Is that the socioeconomic landscape has shifted so much so fast over a short period of time that we have not caught up to it culturally. So it leaves men having to redefine themselves both as providers, but also what is masculinity. And we can all take a look out the window now and see that it is all over the board.
Yeah.
I mean, it is everything and anything. What is
But there was a traditional definition of masculinity that was stoic, protective, provider.
Yeah.
It's someone who
You know,
restrained
it
their.
it had all that, and then it had the I don't talk about emotions.
Right. That
and
is
I have
an
a
important.
temper and that
Right. I'm not saying it's all good. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
well,
that
when
we
you
have
said
this
stoic,
definition.
I mean that's true. We just grit our teeth and got through it. I was not. I mean, a child of the 70s, 60s, and 70s and 80s. I couldn't show emotion in at home.
Oh,
My dad wasn't
yeah.
going to put up with that.
My brothers would
It to the point where,
capitalize
as an
on it.
adult, I could not identify my own emotions. I could get.
So maybe you're not as
Yeah.
emotionally intelligent as I thought.
And
What I said was,
if you spend time trying
I'm
to
being vulnerable,
understand it,
Sheila.
you realize that you don't like your emotions.
Yeah.
You want to tell your emotions to shut up. Leave me alone.
Go on, Bernie.
This is why I like having my microphone.
You guys
down.
can't see it, but Bernie's weeping right now.
Yeah.
No,
His lower lip
So
is
you
quivering.
don't know how to ask for help. You don't know, am I sad? Am I depressed? Am I anxious? Am I frustrated? Am I mad? You don't really know. It
and
just becomes a numbness.
I feel like in that way, partially in that way, the newer generation is better.
Yes, for sure. But
Minus 30% of their testosterone, but they're
Well,
better.
right, I mean there are
And they
some
can't open a
issues.
pickle
Put the
jar.
pickles in a tear bag. We don't need it. They can't open a Doritos bag. All right, we got a problem.
Yeah, they can't open a chips bag.
Well, just have your girlfriend.
They're
Well,
Gen Z
That's
friendly.
what scissors are for.
Yeah, scissors. Technology.
Yeah, they should advertise as Gen Z, made for Gen Z chip bags
Yeah.
with their tiny little hands.
Up, we just lost a listener. Good going down.
I don't know how old Boom Boom is, but I'm sure he's going to write a letter.
he'll,
But
he'll stick it out.
But yeah, that's a real problem. I grew up in a family, again, I'm part Italian. My Italian grandfather used to weep. It was a beautiful sight. I grew up with being allowed to express emotion. I remember reading books as a little kid, TA for Tots, which was written by the same author as I'm Okay, You're Okay. Do you remember that book? That was a
Nope.
big, really?
Nope.
What's that, Marlo Thomas? Free to be you and me?
Yeah.
Well, that's something different, but that was progressive too. I'm Okay, You're
That
Okay.
stuff
That
never
was
came to
huge
South Dakota.
1970s.
We were like the
Guys are
tundra
the
of America.
frontier.
Yeah.
And I also read a book called What Makes Me Feel This Way. So I was really in touch with my emotions, and so was my brother, who I would argue was one of the most intelligent,
was.
emotionally intelligent people
He was.
I've encountered. That guy, thoughtful, sweet, like really thought
Yeah.
about how people might feel. And anyway, so what you're naming, not being able to identify your own feelings. And if you can't identify them, what can you do about them?
Ignore them.
Well, right. You
Just
push them down.
Push them
Push 'em
down,
down.
man. Push them down.
Push them down.
And then
So
you
much-
have a heart attack.
So much space down there.
You have a heart attack at 65 and you leave your partner
I wish
to
we had
live
a
another
closet
5 years
the
without
size
you.
of my emotional
Yeah, yeah, big
r-
closet.
repository.
Bernie needs a walk-in closet
Oh,
for his
yeah.
emotional baggage. Yeah, I know. Well, so this begs the question then. All right, we know where the men are. We know where they aren't. We
They're
understand
in a
that
room without doors.
Right, they're in a room without doors. They can't leave and they can't stay. But we know that things are changing economically, socially. So, where does that leave the future of men? The term toxic masculinity. I've always hated that term, right? Because you're either toxic or you're masculine. It doesn't.
Right. Why do we have to say, oh, he's a toxic man?
Right.
It's like calling women the B word or the C word. I've never
Sheila,
liked that.
you are being hysterical.
Yeah. I just, if you want to be mad at somebody, be mad at them and call them an a-hole.
Right. Yeah.
Let's
Gender
keep
neutral.
it gender neutral. Exactly. So, right. Why we do calling men toxic because it's a male who's
Yeah.
maybe overly
I've been called
aggressive.
worse.
Well, I don't know, Bern.
I
What are your solutions for this problem?
I'm just waiting to get into the next part because this just seems like the top part. Toxic masculinity.
Well, right.
I don't
I mean, like, what is that exactly?
It's
It's just
one
being
of
a
those-
jerk.
It's just one of those things.
Right.
So we're in a space now where we need to redefine masculinity. That doesn't mean throw out everything.
Or emphasize the parts of masculinity we weren't emphasizing.
Right.
You can still provide. You can still protect.
Well, you could say that
You
it-
can
it could-
co-provide. I think a lot of people
Yeah.
would argue.
And Gen Z can't perform due to the lack of testosterone, but they can do other things.
They can eat. They can eat chips.
They can eat chips. Yeah, they eat a lot of chips. Right. So how does that? Where does that leave us?
Yeah, we need to teach men empathy. We need to teach them to nurture
Well,
emotional
if history has
strength.
taught us anything, we'll have a knee-jerk reaction by the far fringe, and they'll take over the.
Andrew Tate. Right.
Yeah,
There are
exactly.
people stepping
It'll
into
be
that void.
the abject wrong way to go.
Right.
Some idiot.
And the other thing is, there are, and this is also touchy, right? There are a lot more boys being raised without fathers.
Right.
And I think, according to the studies, the outcomes are worse without fathers than girls without fathers.
Huh.
I think,
Boys need role models. Teachers too
and
are.
they need people to keep
like
them
you
in
said.
line, right?
Like you said earlier, teachers are overwhelmingly female.
And men can teach men how to be men. I really believe that, right? So can a lot of single moms do amazing out there. I'm not taking anything away from them,
Cats teach cats to be cats too.
right?
They do.
Yeah, so we all have to learn.
Very, very nice. I think I have that T-shirt.
Let's keep an eye on her, Bernie.
Yeah, that- I guess something did fall on it.
Something did fall on my head while you were gone, Bernie.
Teach cats to be cats. Well, put that, on a coffee mug.
Just catching up.
Yeah. But, yeah, so I think we're not very smart, right? So, but we dove just...
Men?
No, just this group
Oh,
here.
society.
So
We got to get
It's
back
a
on
show
the thread.
for idiots by idiots.
Right, we did our best.
Yes.
We're moving on to a different topic.
We actually spent time on this.
Yeah.
A little bit.
A little.
But
bit.
the real issue is people don't want to talk about it, and because men have run everything for a long time anyway. So
Right,
they're
right.
either spiking the football or rolling their eyes. But a lot of women will have sons one day, and they think we want the best for them.
And we have brothers and fathers and friends. Like, I love you both. And
Even me.
especially you,
Aw.
Bernie.
Okay.
And, I want to help men. I want to help society.
Right.
I don't want to see the people I love struggling with no way to get help,
And-
not
and-
knowing how to identify
and
their
for those-
feelings,
those
and they
people-
can't open the pickle jar.
And for those people that roll their eyes, we can just say to them, fine, for all the men that are over the age of 8, they're garbage. Let's just
Let's start
invest.
anew.
Yeah, we're going to do it on the ones we can have impact on. Everybody else, screw those.
Good luck to you.
Yeah.
Right.
Roll your eyes at them.
I mean, we're all in the back nine anyway here. We're observers in
Oh,
life.
yeah.
I am. I don't know, but she looks great.
Well,
She's
Apparently, we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, we're
No.
getting older. It's like, guys, people, I don't want to get suspended for calling everyone guys. It's on you. The onus is on you, Gen Z.
Yeah.
You guys better
Good
start
luck.
paying attention.
start doing some hand exercises and just push-ups maybe. Or
And maybe some nuanced thinking,
Yeah.
some
How do you
intellectual
feel?
discourse.
What are you feeling? Huh?
yeah.
I think that
I think they do it
younger
more.
generations are better at identifying their feelings, and they are more emotionally literate.
And
But they have some other issues going on, and intellectual discourse is a big
Someday
one.
that'll be a topic. The other issues that Gen Z has.
20
So
seconds.
no, we have 15 seconds left. So hey guys, great
Thanks
show.
for being here. Don't forget, Sunday is bath day.
Sunday. Next week's Sunday.
Whatever
yeah.
can't
masculinity looks like for you, just make sure it smells okay.
Thanks everyone. Talk to you later.
Bye.